Welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are actually taking a look at one of the first soccer games that was actually released for the PlayStation 1. It was released back in the early days of the console in 1995. Now I actually didn't get to play this game for quite a while. It was actually not until I actually got my own PlayStation around Christmas of 1997, and we actually got quite a few games. My parents actually got like a deal where they actually could get the PlayStation with two controllers, a memory card, and a selection of like two games. But my parents also went out and bought one or two other games as well, so we actually had a few games to play. And one of those games was actually Actua Soccer, and I'd never played it up until that point, so it was interesting to see what it was going to be like now, because I grew up like in a football household. My dad played Gaelic football for years, the Irish version of football basically, but he was always mad into like soccer as well. We always grew up even with soccer because all my brothers were all Man United fans and my dad was a Tottenham Hotspur fan, so we were always into football anyway. So it was interesting to actually play this, and I had played like soccer games on the likes of the Super Nintendo, Master System, Mega Drive over the years. So this was my first attempt at actually trying to play a soccer game on PlayStation. Now I remember actually when I first played this here, we actually sat down on the evening on Christmas Day, and we actually all tried to play it. Even my dad even tried to actually have a go of it as well, because we were all trying to figure out what to do, and we were enjoying it. We were having a good laugh, but we actually this game is not the easiest of games to pick up and play, because especially with being an early game on the console, it is quite difficult to get to grips with. Once you do get to grips with it, you can master the game once you figure everything out, but it is actually a tough game. Now, I remember when we played it, we didn't realise that you could change the camera angle, so we didn't have this particular camera angle. We had one of the ones I think was behind the player or something, so it was quite difficult to figure out what to do next, because the camera can roll around or wrap around the player, and sometimes it's actually difficult to see where you are and what you're doing at any given time. But we couldn't score goals either. That was the thing. For the life of us, we did not know how to actually get even close to scoring a goal. Even in this game here, this is the first time I've actually played this game in years, and I just said, you know what, I need to actually go and play this again and do a video on it, because it is actually a good game. Even though it is difficult, it is actually a good game. The one thing that straight away springs to mind to me that I loved about it was that it felt very authentic. That you played as different countries. Like I'm from Ireland, so I picked Ireland, and you can play against other teams. Like you've all the major like World Cup style teams and from different countries and regions and so forth as well. But what's instantly recognisable is the atmosphere. It just felt so authentic. The crowds, even down to kicking the ball, the whole vibe that you got from football back in those days. That was the one really good thing the game actually done really well on. And the fact is that it actually had commentating voiceovers from Barry Davis. That I used to always hear him on the likes of Match of the Day, and even when football tournaments and stuff like that were on back in the day when I was a kid. So straight away you felt right at home, and it felt actually so surreal to actually play a video game where you were listening to guys that you would literally be listening to on the TV week in, week out growing up as a child. And even from my dad as well, because he was a massive football fan, and even to hear that as well, even he thought it was awesome too. So this was it was a really, really good experience. Again, we weren't good at the game, but that didn't matter. It just felt so authentic for the time with the way football was at that stage in the mid-90s. It was actually an incredible experience. Even though the game was hard as hell to play and figure out, we actually did get quite a bit of enjoyment out of it. But again, I think this was actually one of the first original soccer games originally on the PlayStation. I don't know if it was the first one, but it was definitely one of the earlier games, because this was released in 1995. So it definitely was one of the earlier ones as far as I know. Now they did do other iterations of it. They done like Actua Soccer 2 and 3. I do remember one in Actua Soccer 2, and I actually enjoyed that. It was actually a little bit better in terms of how to control than this here. But again, it was a very similar concept. Actua Soccer 3 was very different. They were trying to go for more realistic feel. because again at that time, like games of like FIFA, International Superstar Soccer Pro, and other football games were starting to come out, and they were all starting to be a lot more realistic in terms of how the game mechanics worked and so forth. So you could definitely see that they were trying to change things up after that. But the Actua Soccer series just disappeared after the third game. Even in general, the sports series, and they were a really good selection of sports games. They had golf games, hockey games, say soccer games, and I think there was a couple of others. But after that, then they just disappeared off the PlayStation platform. After I think it was at 97, 98, I never heard of them really again, which is a pity because they were a good series of games, and they sold quite well too. I know that this game here eventually became part of what was called the Platinum selection as well. So once games sold over a certain amount of copies, I think it was like over 1 million copies, that the game would go on to like a budget edition, but it was called the Platinum edition back in the day. So this was one of the first games on that. But again, it was actually a really good game. I had actually tons of fun with this once we were able to figure it out, and it took actually a couple of weeks before we were even able to really kind of get a good game going where we could actually start scoring a few goals. It took a lot of practice to really kind of master this game, but I suppose that was the fun of it. And the cool thing about it is as well is because on the day that we got it, like we say, it was Christmas Day in 1997, and we had quite a few selection of games. I had been actually buying a couple of games on and off months previous to it, and like we had a load of demo CDs as well, so we wanted to make sure that we had actually quite a few options to actually have so we could play games on Christmas Day, and being able to actually have this as part of that lineup actually was fantastic. So we actually had quite a good selection of games, so we actually did play this for quite a while. We played it more in the evening because we all, myself and my brothers and say my dad, we actually spent quite a while playing this and thoroughly enjoyed it. So it's not as refined as games of today, I will admit, and even later games in the PlayStation's sports library. But with it being one of the earlier ones, it's definitely a good way to reminisce on that era of football and even sports games, or just games in general. Because even for its time, the one thing that it done really well was it definitely captured the atmosphere between, like say, the crowds in the background, the style of the way the game was played, and then obviously the commentary on top of that. It got everything that point so right. It was just the gameplay was just hard to actually master. That was the main thing, and actually scoring goals was definitely a challenge in itself, but it was good fun. It was good days, good memories playing this game. At a later point they did eventually release, I think it was about a year later, they released a club edition of this here, so it actually had Premier League clubs in it, but I never actually had that version. Now a friend of ours actually had it, and we did actually play it. He took it over to the house. Essentially it was the same game, just that actually club teams like Manchester United and all, say, the English Premier League teams instead of international teams. But if you pretty much had this one here, that's all you needed, because essentially it played the exact same. There was no difference in it. It was only different when you got the actual sequel, which was Actua Soccer 2. Then it played a little bit different, and this was a bit more fluid and a bit more refined. Yeah, so as you can see, I haven't played this in a while. It definitely takes a lot to master, but I have to say, no, I enjoyed actually getting back into this and playing this, because I haven't played this in a long time. So if you haven't actually played this, I highly recommend that you at least go and revisit it, or if you haven't played it, just experience it for the first time and see what you think. So what are your experiences if you have played it? Did you enjoy it? What did you think of it back in the day? I'd love to hear your stories. Let me know down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be updated whenever I release a future video, as I will be diving more into these sports games and reliving old memories, and just revisiting all these old games, and even trying to find new type of sports games I never got to play on the PlayStation back in the day, and sharing them with all you guys, and you can share your experiences too. So as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and make sure to keep those gaming memories alive.